Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Boys. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we had that opening, and I thought that was so interesting because obviously it's like the propaganda machine that is this to kind of incite people, and we see it kind of slowly but surely warp that dude's mind to the point like he saw what he wanted. Like it's because he has so much stuff flashing in his eyes saying like, oh my god, watch out for the super terrorists, they're here. And at one point this guy, he went to the store over and over again, saw like the store clerk like over and over again, and at one point he sees his eyes kind of glazed blue, and it's like, wait, and then they're not. So he's thinking like, oh, this must be some superpower. So he kind of gets radicalized. So I think it's showing, like how how that propaganda machine can work, but also maybe like, hey, this is someone who's not maybe the most mentally stable, kind of being radicalized. I mean, you might make the argument it's not even just someone that might have some, mental issues. It could easily just be someone just purely like radicalized and like, no, we need to stop them. It could go either way in that, and it was just like, wow. And I think that's so like that propaganda machine, that fear-mongering of just kind of like, we gotta watch out, these suit terrorists, they're here, like, you're putting that fear in people. And I mean, to be fair, that isn't, once again, it isn't, like, it can lean heavily, I think, into someone that might have mental illness and they kind of jump on, but even then, it can radicalize anyone because you'll be looking at certain people a different way. I mean, obviously, that's pulling from real life, where it's just kind of like, life has shown that, like, people go hold a prejudice against someone because it's like, oh, you look like who we perceive to be the bad guy or something like that, or a person perceives to be the bad guy. So those, that preconceived notions plus having those preconceived notions reinforced by this propaganda machine that, Homelander and Stormfront are pushing, and that's kind of a heartbreaking beginning to it all, because it's showing you what the world is like. We're seeing most everything from like the superhero point of view. This is an example of like that on the human street level, and I thought that was, I think, an interesting and poignant point to kind of get across. But along with all that, obviously, Lamplighter giving his testimony to Victoria, but at the same time, it's like, that's not enough. They still need more, which obviously Butcher's not happy about this, because he's like, what we do is we press him to get the next fucker, and then we kill the previous fucker. But it's like, Mallory's like, oh yeah, obviously you want this cycle of brutality to continue, but it's like, they need more. So it's like, how are we going to handle this situation? And it's like, all right, so Newman needs to be watched. And, Mallory puts, Frenchie on, and she's like, Serge, this time, no leaving your post. And he's like, oui, madame. And brings, Kimiko along, which I thought that was a beautiful scene between them, because obviously he's watching Newman with her, daughter, and it's a situation of, it makes him think about his situation, because it's like, cooking is kind of your way to kind of weave through the storm, because, as he says, because he talked about when his dad went crazy, which we learned about his dad last season, when that's a whole terrible situation. It's all right, but his mom, he would cook with his mom, and and I think it's such a sweet moment too, because you see Kimiko smile. You don't see that often. I mean, especially after everything that happened with her brother, but to see that smile on her face like that, it's just like, for him, he's asking like, did your mom cook? And Kimiko nods, and this is a beautiful thing of him being like, whenever you want to talk about it, I'd love to hear it. Because basically you die twice. And I thought that was actually kind of a very poetic thing to say. Well, because he was quoting somebody in particular, that you die twice, when you stop breathing and when someone utters your name one last time. So basically, it's the thing of, you're alive as long as people remember you and talk about you. So it's like, I'd love to talk about your family, like obviously your mom, your dad, your brother. We'll keep them alive just a little bit longer by talking about them, by saying their names, And I thought that was a beautiful sentiment. He's like, if you ever want to teach me. And she pulls out the gun, and he's like, all right, understood. She's like, no. And then she slowly teaches him. He's like, oh, gun. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, ah. So I think it's pretty dope. She's finally trying to teach him, the language so that they communicate. Because, I believe after last episode, they have a very better understanding of each other. Like, I think Kimiko because Frenchie understands kind of what Kimiko is going through, but at the same time, Kimiko also understands a little bit more of like, oh, I understand you more, Frenchie. And I think that's going to continue to, grow that relationship. So I thought that was a beautiful thing. It's actually kind of sad about the whole Newman situation, because it's like people are telling her oh, you should go, like basically trying to kick her out of the country, trying to treat her because obviously this whole thing is turned into like this political situation of like, oh my god, these super terrorists are coming across our borders, immigrants. It turned like, obviously this is like the superhero, like superpowered version of it, but it still like obviously plays true this aspects of real life. Obviously that's what the show does. It pulls in things from real life and just kind of puts a superhero spin on it, but still keeping it grounded to the point of like, yeah, these are street level people saying that, and there are people in real life who say that. It's you can read obviously between the lines and the parallels that they are creating. You have Mallory off with talking to Jonah, trying to get him to be the one to testify. But obviously, because it's interesting, I didn't know they had a history, but it makes sense considering like him being who he is, like who he was in VOD. It makes sense that Mallory would have gotten to him Mallory would have gotten to him at some point in time. And I thought it was so interesting, like how he was like, honestly, that lady over there, that's my daughter. She came here to take care of me. And he's like, honestly, like, you can do whatever you want to me, but I don't want my family dragged into this. You better know better than anyone, like, what it's like to lose something. He's like, after what you lost, like, some things are more important than doing the right thing, which Mallory completely understands. And it suggests, but for Mallory, it's a thing of, no, you should just go back to your family. And MM's kind of like, when it's all said and done. Because obviously, had brought up the whole fact is that this is a disease. This is his father's battle that now kind of passed on to him, and he doesn't want it to pass on to his daughter. But for Mallory, it's like, this battle will never be over. There is no winning. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to give you your revenge. You're not going to get justice. You're just not going to walk away basically with nothing, because this never ends. It's a never-ending battle. So take the time to leave. Get out while you can. Because she ended up talking that basically it's his special forces training that's kind of making him kind of talk the way, but it's like, no, get out while you can, because she doesn't want in the same situation she is. She's like, I should have gotten out before I did, and it cost me anything. I wish I'd left when I could have, but I didn't. So I thought that was kind of a powerful moment, because like, out of anyone, still has the most to lose amongst the boys. Like, everyone else is kind of alone at this point in time. Huey's dad's kind of hidden away. His wife and kid are hidden away too, but it's still the thing of like, you had the most to lose. Like, because she's like, I can get you like out of the country, hidden away. But I guess it's the thing, like, you wouldn't be that much on VOD's radar anymore, so they wouldn't care, so you could disappear. So there's that side of thing. There's obviously Butcher dealing with his personal life. Obviously, we dive a little bit more into his family situation. We meet his mom, who's like, yeah, your dad's dead. And then he shows up because he's like, yeah, he wants to check on his mom. But she's like, actually, I got to show you something. Don't be mad. And it's his dad, who's played by fucking John Noble. I was like, what? That's dope. I want to say Elementary is the most recent thing I saw him in. If you don't know, in Elementary, he played Sherlock's dad. But this ain't even the first superhero property he's been in. He was actually in Legends of Tomorrow, season 3. He actually makes a live action appearance, but he mainly voiced the main antagonist of season 3. So, but obviously he's popped up in many different things. Fringe, Sleepy Hollow, so on and so forth. But regardless, those are the things I kind of know him best for. But obviously, like the Lord of the Rings movie, which I didn't even know he was in the Lord of the Rings movies. Regardless, you kind of meet his dad, and you kind of understand why Butcher is the way he is. His dad is, as Butcher would put it, a cunt. Because his dad is kind of a bully in the sense of like, oh yeah, like, I made you strong. Like, I made you stronger than me, stronger than you. Your brother could have never, basically saying like, your brother Lenny, he was weak. Like, could even try to say like, oh yeah, like you, he brings up cricket, and it's like, he's like, you really want to bring up cricket? He's like, the only good memories I have about cricket is the fact of the matter is you would go off with your pals, get super drunk, and then I'd be able to go and do whatever I want to for hours. And he's like, yeah, let's not talk about it. Butcher's like, yeah, let's not. And it's like, don't ever say Lenny's name. And it's like, he's like, it's your fault that he's dead. Because basically Butcher's saying like, you used to beat the shit out of us. He's like, yes, but look at how strong you've become. You're stronger than me. And it's like we find out Lenny died because he committed suicide. It's like your brother put that gun in his mouth because you weren't there for him, because you basically abandoned him. So basically trying to turn it on Billy to be like, you're just as much to blame because you weren't there for your brother. Maybe it's the thing of Billy just like, oh, I take it as him trying to imply like Billy got tired of like, I'm always having to defend you. I just want to, my whole life can't be about protecting you, bro. So maybe, with his own personal demons, Lenny just didn't have anyone to rely on and ended up killing himself. And obviously that's that rage inside, it's just his upbringing, his dad, that made Billy who he is and made him the asshole that he is, because even to the point, he starts choking his dad for bringing that up. Because I was halfway expecting him to throw his dad off the railings, but then I was going to be like, it's going to be all in his head. That's what I thought, but it's like he started choking his dad. His mom like pulled him off, but it's like, see, Lenny would never be able to do that, because he's calling his dad a monster, and he's like, it takes a monster to know a monster. But it's like, in his own mind, he thinks he did Billy a favor, like, I toughened you up. So you kind of understand where that mean streak in Billy comes from, what Rebecca had brought up before about, like, your situation kind of existed before me. So I'm sure the combination of Lenny and their upbringing, I'm sure it's a situation where Billy probably mainly left. It's probably a thing of he ended up leaving Lenny behind, in a sense that, like, most likely Billy's like, I need to join the military, because I think that's what the SAS is, kind of like, I think I could be completely mistaken, but it's like, he's like, probably like, I need to get away from this family, and in the process, his brother kind of got stuck there alone, having nobody, and ended up dying and killing himself because of it. So I think all that is kind of why Billy has the angry streak in him, but you can make the argument, obviously the main factor to it is what his dad put them through, so. And obviously we see that anger of Billy's come out when he threatens Jonah, because it's like, all right, tell me what Homelander was like. And obviously Homelander, he's like, honestly, Homelander was kind of a sweet kid, and obviously we see elements of that with Ryan. We'll get to that soon enough, but we see elements of that. And it's like he needed Homelander to be the perfect weapon. So I'm sure Billy hearing this in his own way, because he had already had that confrontation with his dad at the time, so that you can draw parallels. I mean, obviously there are already parallels between Billy and Homelander anyway, but it's like, your dad was a cunt, my dad was a cunt, and we both kind of turned out to be the fucked up individuals that we are in our own right. Similarities while also being different as well, but it's like, I think Billy saw that. Maybe it's the thing that he's not willing to even connect the dots to be like, oh, but it's kind of interesting that Homelander obviously wasn't always Homelander. Obviously it was nurture, and it was more so nurture, the way he grew up and everything, that made him into what he was. He could have been a sweet kid, but maybe that's also making him think about Ryan. Maybe that's making Billy think like, okay, maybe the way Becca's handling things is for the best for Ryan, that maybe he can turn out different. Maybe not. Obviously, with the way things go down in this episode, we'll get to that soon enough, like I said. But I love that him threatening. He's like, you could do whatever you want to me, and it's like, no, don't worry about it. When I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna find that daughter of yours, and I'm gonna bash her brains in. Then I'm gonna find your two sons. Basically, he's like, I'm gonna kill your whole entire family dies today, or you can help. And then, like, Jonah's like, how can you be? And then his daughter brings him, like, oh, I've been a while since I had a cup of char, and he's putting on this charming look, and then he's sipping it and looking at Jonah. I'm like, and he's got that smile on his face afterwards. I'm like, yo, Billy looks like a straight psychopath. He looks like Homelander in this moment, just like how willing he is to. But that's the thing. That's what kind of separates Billy from the rest of the boys. The boys aren't willing to kind of always do whatever it takes. Billy's the only one that's like, if I need to, I will burn other people to the ground if it means getting what I want. It was like that season 1. You'd hope he seems like he might have lessened up a bit, maybe, but then you're kind of like, no. Billy's still 100% there. He's still going 0 to 100 when it comes to all of this. So there's that. Starlight situation, she's talking with her mom, because obviously for her it's just like, it's not all what she thought it was, because she talks about the fact is, like, anytime before she'd go out for hero duty, she'd always touch her cross, because she thought like, oh, this power of mine was God-given. Now it's like everything she believed in was a lie. This power was never given to her by God. She was an experiment when she was injected with something when she was a kid, and now she also finds out Vought isn't what she thought it was. Like, she held it as this pinnacle. Oh my god, it's the 7, they're heroes. It's like, they're not good guys. The good guys don't win. This is all about power and money. So it's not what she thought. So like that, her entire world basically crashed down around her, and she just wants to get away. And her mom's like, oh, let's get away. It's like, plus I cleared your schedule with Ashley. And she's like, wait, what, Mom? Boom, too late. Black Noir comes in, knocks everybody out, knocks Annie out. Then obviously we got the rallies, with Homelander and Stormfront, and them obviously rallying everyone to be like, oh, like these, all, under one God, and giving the spiel, and they're trying to say like, oh, that dude that died at the beginning of the episode, yeah, like, our prayers and stuff like that. But then it's like, yeah, and obviously it's like public perception on Homelander has swayed. We already knew that, but now it's swayed even more because you have him and Stormfront as a team, like the Nazi couple, rallying the troops. Obviously, you need to rally everyone, because even I'm like, I feel like I see some minorities in that group, because they haven't gone full radical yet. They haven't gone to the point where they're like, yeah, some of you don't need to show, because they need to keep up the perception, because they know if they start throwing out the Nazi shit immediately, it's like, no, people aren't going to be behind that. We'll slowly do this, and then we'll kind of start at the top, and then we'll kind of trickle down and kind of take care of stuff as it needs to be done later on. We kind of radicalize everyone first, and then we'll kind of sort, the war for the culture and everything afterwards. That's how I'm feeling like that's how they're handling. But, it's like, he's like, we should just take care of Stormfront. He's like, we should take care of Starlight, Stormfront. Like, I underestimated her before. It's like, no, this is good. And this also plays into how, that also shows you how far in advance Stormfront was thinking about this. Like, oh, I could use you. Hell yeah. So I thought that was so fascinating. And then at the same time, there's the whole situation with, it's like Stormfront's looking, and she's like, oh, my daughter, she used to look exactly like that 80 years ago. And in a moment she brings that up, you're like, oh boy. And he's like, Homeland's like, I got to show you something. So they roll up on Becca and Ryan. It's like, oh, this is my girlfriend, which is kind of weird hearing him say that term. It's like, oh, it feels weird hearing him say, this is my girlfriend, Storm, because this is probably the only, like, I mean, even you can make the argument, even obviously the whole him and Madeline situation was fucking weird, because obviously that stems from like his mommy issues and stuff like that. I mean, his issues in general, because he has a lot. But it's also, you can make the argument, it's like, well, she's actually a grandmother in her own right, because she's 101 years old. But, because that kind of plays into a little bit, regardless. And also she's a Nazi, so that's a whole layer of things on top of it. But it's like, oh, this is my girlfriend. And it's like, Becca's trying to like mediate things. And I thought that was so interesting, because obviously, they're sticking around. I also love that, like, his thing is he's recreating movies with Legos, because like the moment he was doing that movie he was playing at first, I was like, is that The Blind Side? And I was like, oh yeah, he did that. He does all his mom's movies like that. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's actually pretty sweet and kind of cool that you did that, recreating the movies like that. But then like she's like, don't you want to do anything fun? What was it? NBA 2K, I think she said, and then she was like, PewDiePie, and I'm like, I get it, you're trying to relate to the youth. I was like, that's an interesting pull. Part of me, I know I'm pulling from this, and this is just me reading too much into it. I'm curious, did they use PewDiePie, for example, just because obviously he's like one of the most popular YouTubers, or is it also because, let's not forget, PewDiePie had that controversy where like people were labeling him as an anti-Semite. You were able to, I don't agree with that, but people might still feel a certain way about that, so I'm not going to tell you to change how you feel. I'm wondering, did they specifically pull him because of that? It's interesting that the Nazi character brought that up. I'm not trying to pull, but part of me wonders, is that supposed to be like a slight wink and nod at that? Not saying that he is, but also like he, maybe that's also why she referenced PewDiePie, because she'd like to, maybe she... Like I said, I'm probably reading too much into it. I'm not trying to say that he is one. I didn't say anything. I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just wondering, is that what that's supposed to be a slight wink and nod towards? I'm not saying he is one. I don't believe he's one. I never have, But I'm just wondering, is that it? Like I said, I'm probably reading too much into it. It could just simply because it's like, yeah, he's one of the most popular YouTubers, and I think like a lot of, kids about Ryan's age are like a lot of his fans, Not a lot of, I mean, a chunk of his fans at the very least, I don't know. But also when I'm sitting there thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, Ryan kind of fits the bill too. Like, oh my God, because I'm just like, oh my God, yeah, you look just like your dad, especially those eyes. It's like, right, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, just like Hitler wanted them, right? So, see what I mean? It's just like, you can already go like, yeah, the recruitment's already started. Sadly, Becca doesn't realize, oh, you have a full-blown Nazi in front of you. You don't even know it. But obviously, it's like, oh, let's take you out and stuff like that. You know, I want you to spend more time. And obviously, Becca's like, can we talk privately? And for Homelander, he's coming from the front of like his upbringing. It's like, you're lying to our son. She's like, I get it. She's like, you love him. I love him. And obviously, you love him too. I know you want what's best for him. Because obviously, she's terrified of Homelander. But she also doesn't want to lose her son. Like, that's why she's doing all this. Because in her own, you know, but it's also sad because there's also the part of, she's even made it clear, there's a part of her in the back of her mind that's like, I need to make sure he doesn't end up like Homelander. You created this situation to protect him, yes, but there's also a part of you that's like, I don't want you to be an asshole like your dad. The world's scariest, most dangerous asshole, you know? Like, so there is that level of it too, but it's like, you know, her mother, you know, being a mother comes first. And it's like, you didn't have a mother growing up, but he does. He has me, so please don't take him from me. And Homelander seeming like he's going to agree, but then they tell Ryan everything. They show him the truth. And it's like, you know, the boy deserves to know. And obviously, she's like, no, you're not going to take my son needs his mom. And it's like, don't worry, he'll have a mom. Me, his Nazi stepmother. It's like, oh. You know, so it's like now they're going to breed Ryan to be what they needed to be, and obviously they take off with him. It's like, oh, that's sad. Once again, in your attempt to protect him, to prevent him from becoming like Homelander, you may have just pushed him even further to become Homelander 2.0, sadly. Because they can mold him into be what they want to be. Because obviously, like, Homelander can get off by being like, yes, I'm a father. It's like, we can be this family, this really twisted, fucked up family. But it's like, I can be a father. I'll be a better father than Jonah was to me. Granted, he wasn't really my dad, but still. And he's going to have a good mother like Stormfront, who's not going to hold him back from being, who's actually going to have him embrace who he is. I don't see his ideals going the way they want them to, but to be fair, he's young enough for them, because that's the thing, like, a lot of hatred is not born, it's fed. That could be an argument, but it's also like you feed it, in the sense that, like, he is a perfectly non-Nazi kid right now, but enough propaganda shoved down his throat, being, you know, he's young enough where they can mold his mind to be like, this is the way the world really is. They could sway him because he's young enough to mold his mind to be like, we're these powerful people and we're the good guys, right? So why would we're not the bad guys? So they can radicalize him as well. So I mean, once again, that's the whole point. So there's that side of things. There's also the interesting side of things where it's like, A-Train and the Deep, they're at Alistair's party and everything. It's his birthday party and everything. It's quite the bash. And then, you know, A-Train's like, yeah, Deep, I'm making things up to you. It's like, here's a gift. It's like, oh, this fit. Oh, it knows my name. Oh, yeah, no, that's cool, bro. He's like, thanks, man. Thanks a lot. This means a lot. Yeah, sure. Cause you can tell A-Train's still kind of like, I've got to play nice. I really still don't really care for you, bro. But it's like, yeah, to make good with you and everything. I like we haven't really gotten too deep into what A-Train's been doing as part of the, you know, church and everything. But then it's kind of like, I like Alistair being like, yeah, I got a meeting with Stan Edgar. You guys might be, you know, we got to work out some deals, but you two might be in, you know, especially after this whole Starlight thing. We'll get to that in a second. But, well, you know, because I'd skipped over a little bit, but obviously Starlight got blamed. It's like labeled as a traitor. I'm like, oh, that sucks. But what I thought was so interesting, though, it's like, also because it's like, oh, yeah, you know, God, what's his face? I'm already blinking on his name. The eagle dude, the bow and arrow dude. It's like, yeah, you're good. He's like, oh yeah, he's like a brother to me. He's this, he's that. It's like, yeah, never talk to him again. He's not part of us anymore. He's toxic. And then like the Deep being like, yeah. I always felt like he was pretty toxic. So like you literally, and once again that shows you how dumb the Deep is so entrenched in this that he's kind of like, yeah, you tell me he's toxic, yeah, I'll cut him out, even though he's the one that brought me into the fold. And I just said literally a second ago how much he's like a brother. Oh, you want me to say fuck him? All right, yeah, fuck him. Yeah, he sucks. Yeah, and even A-Train's sitting there like, what? Because A-Train's not fully indoctrinated like the Deep is. Once again, the Deep's an idiot. A-Train's, you know, he's kind of like, what the fuck is that about? He's like, because even he's like, what did he do? And it's like, yeah, it's kind of being very like about that. So you're like, what? Like, A-Train's picking up on it, but the Deep isn't. So later on we find out why. It's because for him it's like, he's like, I wanted to get away so I could spend time of like, they want me to cut ties with my mom, and I said no. And so now he's on this like, Ben, like, obviously you can draw parallels, I'm sure, like, that's kind of the parallels are kind of going for, like the whole Scientology thing, and it's like you leave Scientology and just kind of like, what are you talking about? This person, our group is great. This person, they're crazy, because it turns out like he has his part, like stuff leaked about him having his partner like dress up like a deer and stuff like that. So I'm like, would that make him a furry? Like, I don't know if that really counts or not. You know, I'm not well versed in the furry community, so I don't know if they would recognize that as him being a furry. Whatever the case may be, it's like, is that even true, or is that just stuff you threw out there to kind of slant against his name? Because it's like, you know, what you do behind doors is your thing. Like, what you're into is what you're into, as long as you're not hurting anybody. Because I didn't take the mounting as like a literal thing. I took it as a metaphorical, like, oh, you're humping someone mounting type of thing. Not unless they meant that literally, but I think they meant that figuratively, but also in a literal sense. And it's like, oh. And then the Deep's just kind of accepting it and stuff like that. And then like A-Train's like, I thought that was like your friend or something. He's like, yeah, like, it's like, oh, so kind of showing you like how the church is willing to throw you under the bus. But remember, the church knows all they know about you. Like, obviously they have all the dirt on the Deep. They have everything they have on A-Train. It's like, no, we're good. It's like, but that also shows, like, if you go against them, they will throw you under the bus so damn fast, and they will air all your dirty laundry. Especially A-Train with the debt, the Compound V situation, the weak heart and everything. Like, they'll throw him under the bus by exposing him. So this kind of shows you, it's like, all right, giving you a little insight to that. Once again, I love that this continues to be this background story that I think, if it's not this season, maybe next season becomes an even bigger thing. But, you know, we'll kind of have to see. There's also the Maeve situation, because obviously I thought that was kind of an interesting situation, because like the whole thing was like, well, what was Elena thinking last episode? And Elena's like, okay, I got to go be with my sister, and it's like, she's like, what was I supposed to do? She's like, no, I don't envy you. She's like, honestly, I know it's not your fault. She's like, but for her, it's like that little girl begging for you to, I can't get out of my, I haven't been able to sleep, and Maeve's like, I haven't either, and it's like, but she's like, I don't blame you. It's not your fault. Basically, it was a situation you were in. She's like, I'm not blaming you. It's just, it's her. She's like, I'm not as strong as you. And Maeve flips the table. Because she's like, you wanted to see, for so long, you wanted to know the real me, to see the real me, and this is me. And it's just, it's sad, because it's like, this is what you wanted, and you finally got it, and you're rejecting it. And it's like, from Elena's standpoint, you can understand where she's coming from. It's not the easiest thing to deal with all of this. It's a lot for any normal person that, like, especially some regular non-superpowered person to handle. But so we see Maeve kind of like, you know, kind of fucking the heartbreak away. It doesn't heal anything, I'm sure, but, you know, you got to feel something, because you're just feeling a lot of hurt right now. You still want to feel good so you don't hurt. So Ashley's there like, oh, we set you up to be like the world's second favorite lesbian or something like that. But when it was all said and done, like, Maeve was like, Ashley, for once, can you just be a fucking human being? And Ashley's like, I'm sorry, Maeve, and leaves. You know, and I thought that was because obviously she's always a PR person. She's always on. She's always on. I mean, to be fair, she kind of has to be, because if she doesn't, Homelander's going to be pissing. It's like, well, this is her job, and, you know, but it's like, even for that moment, she was able to kind of drop it. And you're like, you're right. I'm sorry, Maeve. I'm sorry about things between you and Elena, and kind of left. She didn't say much more about it. So I thought that was kind of a nice little moment for Ashley. Like I said, because anytime we see her, she's always, like I said, the PR person. She tries to add her own humanity to it, but I think sometimes that just makes it a little worse, because it just seems like you're putting up in front, but it's like, yeah, she is a human. She has her flaws like anyone else, but, you know, still. So I thought that was interesting. Let's circle back to the other big thing this episode too, is like the whole Lamplighter situation. He's watching porn parodies and stuff, and I think that speaks volumes about just how weird that is. The fact of the matter is, you're watching porn parodies of people that you used to be part of that group and everything, and it's like, there's like Homelander cuck porn where like some dude is watching Homelander bang his wife, and it's like, oh yeah, like at first it was like a deep porno, and it's like, or at least it was a whole thing, and it's like, and then the final one was like Starlight and A-Train. He's like, no, and it's like, oh, that's probably going to be the worst, seeing your girlfriend, even though you're technically not together, but you do deeply care for each other, the person that you do love being with the person you kind of dislike the most, because the same dude that ran through and obliterated your girlfriend into viscera, yeah, that'd probably be like, no, not seeing the porn parody of that. And so it's just like, the fact is Lamplighter's like, no, put the remote down or I'm gonna burn you. And it's like, holy shit. Like, like, Huey's in this super uncomfortable situation. It's like, I don't want to watch porn with you. He's like, come on, dude, it's day out. Like, who watches porn in the middle of the day with someone sitting beside him? I was like, that's so weird, but kind of showing you just how weird and kind of fucked up Lamplighter is. But for him, it's like, he talks about the fact is, he was actually happy to be a part of the Seven and stuff like that, because like for him, it's like, he found out, he was like, I was a prodigy. I set my house on fire when I was 4. My dad was so proud of me. And it's just kind of like, but now he's like, now I'm the cuck in the situation. And obviously Huey's like, the reason why I'm here, he's like, because you're useless. I was like, that's so shitty of him to say. Because obviously, like, I'm sure Huey does feel that way, but it is shitty that he would do that. And it's like, you're an asshole for that. Like, why would you, say all that? But then, like, Huey started talking. He was like, my mom, he's like, never mind. When she was gone, it's like, his dad kind of, did nothing with his life. And when Huey thought like, oh, I finally did something with my life, it turns out I'm not even good at that. He thought he found something that he was good at. And I think he was specifically talking about this whole situation with the boys. Obviously, it turned out to be a lot more complex than he thought it was. And it's like, he's like, you're not the cuck, I'm the cuck. He's like, no, you're worse than that. You're not the cuck. You're the cuck fluffer, Huey. And it's like, why? Like, I guess because he's so low, he's like, yeah, I'm low, but man, am I not as shitty as you? It's like, what the fuck is that about? Kind of an asshole, Lamplighter. But I guess it's also because he doesn't care, because he's like, yeah, the moment I testify, I'm dead. So it's like, I kind of have nothing to live for. So it's like, all right, do you want to be the cuck or do you want to be the one that fucks the wife? And it's like, so, because obviously with Starlight being captured, it's like, we got to go save her. And he's like, she's already dead. It's like, no. There is a way to sneak in. He's like, all right. He's like, so he kind of peps him up. He's like, yeah. And Huey's like, yeah, let's go fuck the wife. Consensually, of course. So they sneak in. And Lamplighter kind of already makes it clear, like I said, he doesn't give a fuck, that he doesn't care anymore, to the point that, like, he's like, yeah, either I'm still in the system or a whole bunch of dudes are going to show up with AKs. And Huey's like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, all right, come on. It's like, the fact is he's, and so it's like, the moment they go in, and he's like, yeah, 40, like, wherever it is that she's supposed to be being held, and he was walking, I was like, wait, isn't this near, like, the conference room? Like, what, is he, I was like, is he leading, I thought he was leading Huey into a trap. I was like, oh, shit. But then he's like, they replaced my statue. He's like, I was going to do this, and I was like, are you going to you wanted to turn Huey in front of the statue so you can get back into the Seven? And then he sets himself on fire. I was like, what the fuck, what? And then, like, the sprinklers come on, and I was like, wait, was that the point or something? Because then, like, Starlight has some light because the lights start flaring, and I was like, I don't think he did that on purpose. He went there to die because he felt like he had nothing else to live for anyway. And I was like, shit. Well, because obviously he was living with his guilt and everything. Because even Newman was saying it, because he was like, yeah, it wasn't easy. And then Newman was like, yeah, because you're the victim in all of this, Because I was like, I didn't expect his story to play out like that. And even Huey being like, fuck, man. He's like, shit. Come on, dude. Like, and dude, Lamplighter's dead. He's like, damn it. Huey's like, man, fuck you, man, and leaves. And he's like, shit, I need your hand. And he's just like, breaks off a glass bottle, breaks his hand, and then just like cuts it off, and is like, got it. Starlight's able to make her escape. Lo and behold, who shows up? Black Noir. Bam! And that turns into a brutal fight. Him tossing her around and shit. It's like, shit. I was like, dude, I was like, Huey, somebody? I was like, shit. He starts choking her. I was like, oh, dude. I was like, come on. Huey, somebody. Maeve showing up. I didn't see that come on. I was like, what? She pulls up his mask and puts an almond joy in his mouth. And I love her being like, wait, was that an almond joy? And it's like, yeah, he has a tree nut allergy. Which, two things. One, there's been this running gag about almond joys. Now it makes sense why when he was with that lady looking up Butcher, like, why he had her throw away the almond joy. He's allergic to the tree nuts in it. But also, like, there's this situation where it's like, because obviously that's one of, like, Starlight's favorites, so it's, like, interesting that would be used to take him down. And Starlight's like, come with me, Maeve. And it's like, she's like, I can. It's like, because obviously for her, it's just kind of like, she's at the point where she's kind of like, I have nothing to live for either. Going with you won't help anything. So I'm wondering, like, what's that going to end up with? Is that going to be her being like, you know what, because I don't even have Elena, you have nothing over me anymore, Homelander. I'm going to go toe-to-toe with you. I don't know what to expect in that. Because even if she does, he's not going to be alone. He's going to have Stormfront's help. So it's not like that's going to help. But Huey rescues Annie's mom, and it's like, what? She's like, wait, aren't you the dude from... He's like, oh, hi, Miss January. Come on. She's like, wait, is that a human hand? He's like, yeah, come on, let's go. And they run into Annie. She's like, Huey? And she's reunited with her mom. It's just this sweet moment, them looking at each other. It's like, how do we get out of here? He's like, I got this. And it's just like, why are you carrying around a human hand? Okay. So, when it's all said and done, I should also circle back to the Butcher thing, because I forgot to talk about that, was also the thing with his mom, where his mom is like, I know your dad's a cunt. I brought him here. I only want you to talk with him because I wanted you to let go of everything that you're holding on to. Because she's like, I didn't want you, and she stops, but I think it's because she's like, I want to stop you before you end up fully becoming him. It's like, I recognize your dad's a cunt. He's not going to have that long to live, but it's like, I wanted you to be able to just let go of all your anger, all your resentment, whether it's everything towards him, about just the way he raised you and Lenny, the way he beat you, the way he treated you. You know, I wanted you to be able to just let it all go. And it's like, sadly, in a way, it's already too late, because Butcher, you know, is a lot more like his dad than he'd ever want to admit, you know? But then finally we have, like, the end of the episode with everything going on, because it's like, damn it, you know, Huey screwed things up rescuing Starlight, but obviously she appreciates it, because it's like, you saved me and my mom, and it's like, no problem. Granted, Lamplighter's dead. It's not like he knew that Lamplighter was going to kill himself, but it's like, because of what Billy did, he got Jonah to testify. Now, I thought it was so interesting. They're all crowded around. And I love Annie's mom being there and just being surrounded by everyone. She's sitting beside Frenchie. Kimiko's sitting in front of her. And then I think, like, Butcher said something like, yeah, you're going to get yours, cunt, or something. And then her mom is looking. It's like, oh. And then I'm like, all right, Jonah's getting brought in. Immediately, I'm like, I see Homelander. I'm like, oh, Homelander's going to lose his shit because of who Jonah is. I'm like, it's going to go down like this. Jonah's about to testify. I was like, dude, something's going to go down. I didn't know what. Then, all of a sudden, heads start popping. I'm like, wait, what? Pop. What? Jonah's head. Pop. Pop. I was like, what the? And that scene doesn't make any sense to me, because I'm like, what? The only person we know with that ability is Cindy. And I'm like, Cindy, why would she help them? Like, not unless they caught Cindy and then they forced her to do it. But like, why would she do it? Because like, you would think she'd go for an assassination kill, not straight up murder everyone. Not unless, let's chalk it up to this. Maybe Vought can control who gets what abilities. So Cindy was the test run of someone with those powers. So Cindy might not be the one that killed Raynor. Whoever it was that got the complete version of, like, Cindy has like probably a faulty version of it. Maybe someone else has a better version of it, and their Voughts go too. And so now that Cindy's free, they can blame all this on her. Like, oh, Cindy, she's a super terrorist, because obviously we don't know anything about Cindy. Because that's why I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, like, why she would do that, you know? Why, like I said, unless they caught her, but I'm thinking it has to be someone else with the power. That means it was someone else that killed Raynor, not Cindy. Maybe not. I don't know. It's just interesting because they made a point to introduce us to someone with that power, so not unless it's someone else. But why, like, I guess to make it seem like it's not just an assassination attempt, to make it like a full-blown, oh, you're massacring all these people brought together. I don't know. Maybe that's what, to kind of hide who your true target was. Maybe that's the kind of point of it. But obviously, like, Mallory was able to get Victoria out of there, luckily enough. But it's like, because it reminded me of the Batman v Superman scene. You know, when Superman's in the courtroom and the entire place is on fire after the bomb goes off, and it's just like, just that moment, which to me, I love that moment. Just like, it's just this moment, just him being the only one surviving the fire. And it reminded me of that, of like Homelander and Stormfront looking around. It reminded me of that. And it's hard for me to tell, like, having just watched it once. It seemed at first like even they were confused, like, what the hell? And then they're just kind of looking around. So I don't know if they're trying to pretend like, oh, we're trying to find out where the danger is, but we know who the danger is because I don't know if they already knew that Jonah was going to be the one that was ratting, or either they already knew that ahead of time, or they were planning on killing whoever it was that got brought into the vote. Maybe they found out ahead of time it was Jonah because of their connections or whatever, but not unless we end up finding out the person with that power is from the church. and the church is working alongside Vought because it's like, hey, we'll lend you our person if you can get the Deep and A-Train back into the fold. But dude, that went horribly wrong. And it's like, every time they think they gotta win, everything just gets blown up in their faces. Literally in this particular case, literally last time with Rainer. But it's like, holy shit. So now, like, you try to, once again, Billy talked about, like, not going down this route. You want to go through Congress and stuff like that. And it's like, that didn't work. So now this is just going to, like, bring up that fear even more. It's going to get even more support behind Homelander and Stormfront. I'm curious to see, like, the full picture of how they spin this, because let's not forget, next week's episode is the season finale. I'm so curious how they end up wrapping up this season, because, like, with everything being what it is, it's like, because it's like, what do we do now? And Butcher's got that look on his face. I think it's at this point, it's like, bump that, let's go. Like, I think we're going to the mode of, we just got to kill them. Let's kill them all type of mode. I think that's where Billy's at, because kind of, once again, it's so interesting, like, him going through that, especially, like, potentially feeling that, considering everything that went down with him and his dad this episode. But I am so excited to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the season finale. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, all light to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.